receive our speakers of this morning, Professor Laura Richards and Professor Marcela Gobo. They will talk about women in science. Yeah. So this morning we'll have first the speech of Professor Laura Richards, and afterwards the speech from Marcela Gobo of British Council. Yeah. So let me present you Professor Laura Richards. Yeah. Dr. Laura Richards is a senior research fellow in the Department of Earth and Environment Sciences at the University of Manchester in Manchester, UK, United Kingdom. Originally, she trained as a chemical engineer in the United States, and Laura's research focused on water quality and remediation with strong collaborations across South and Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. Yeah. Dr. Laura is committed to championing equality, diversity, and inclusion. She leads and supports a range of initiatives to accelerate programs, particularly towards gender equality in universities and research institutions in science and engineering disciplines. And Dr. Laura is the University of Manchester Academy leader and coordinator for international gender equality partnerships, including the British Council Brazil and UK project, Women in Science. She will talk about this project. And a similar project in India, that it's called Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions. Yeah. Her team's contributions to these projects has been recognized by winning prestigious University Making a Difference award and associated media coverage. Locally, Dr. Laura is a member of the Faculty of Science and Engineering Promotions Working Group, Departmental Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, and she provides mentorship and coaching to early career researchers. So, Dr. Laura, again, thank you very much for being with us this morning. We are very motivated for hearing you, so please.
Thank you so much for the kind welcome and invitation. I will try to share my screen. Are you able to see that? If I can just have a confirmation. Is it visible? Yes, brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, hello, good morning, and thank you again for the invitation to join today. I'm very sorry that I don't speak Portuguese, but I will try my best to speak clearly and slowly in English. Today, I'd like to talk about some of our experiences and reflections on international partnerships to help support gender equality in higher education and research institutions. This is based both on our UK-Brazil and UK-India collaborations to better support women, particularly in science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine fields. A number of people from Manchester, as well as in Brazil, have contributed to the projects highlighted here today. And I'd like to especially mention the contributions of Mirosława Hamsovic, who is the UNITAU academic lead in our collaboration, as well as Diane Harris, who's our project manager, and our EDI lead, Professor Rachel Cowan. I have some more acknowledgements. The activities and work presented here today are very much a collective effort. We have been very lucky to have been supported through 2 phases of the British Council Women in Science programme. for UK-Brazil partnerships for gender equality. We originally had the opportunity to work with 6 Brazilian partners, and now we are working with 10 Brazilian partners during the ongoing second phase. So these contributions from all of the Brazilian partners are really very much appreciated. Our team from Manchester, those are the pictures along the bottom, brings together experts from all different faculties at Manchester. And we also have colleagues joining from the University of Glasgow and Oxford Brookes University. I'd also like to specifically mention that we have men as well as women represented on our project team, which we feel is really important. And lastly, thanks again to the colleagues at Unitau for the kind invitation to speak today. So to start with some background, our team first became involved with international gender equality projects in 2021 through a UK-India partnership called GATI, which stands for Gender Advancement Through Transforming Institutions. This was a pilot partnership between British Council and the Department of Science and Technology of the Government of India and Advance HE, and the aim was to develop and implement programs and action plans that were contextualized to India to help support women in STEM. About 6 months later, we had the opportunity to also apply for a similar project in Brazil through the UK-Brazil Women in Science scheme. This was really great and exciting for us because it enabled us to build from the early learnings through GATI and start to work together with Brazilian partners towards similar aims, but within a very different context. As I mentioned, this project has now expanded, and we're currently working on phase 2 of the UK-Brazil Partnerships for Women in Science scheme. So the objective of this Women in Science scheme, this is a quote from British Council, is to influence the development of institutional policies and practices to enable progress towards achieving gender equality in science, technology, higher education, and research institutions in Brazil. We're very lucky to be working with a wide range of institutions in Brazil, of course, including Unitau. Our partners are spread geographically and range from federal research institutes to very large universities in Sao Paulo. So for the talk today, I'd like us to be thinking about the following questions. Why is gender equality important? Why is it important, especially in the context of science and engineering? Asking ourselves and our institutions, what can we do to better support women in STEM in higher education, be that in Brazil or the UK or elsewhere? And lastly, how can international partnerships help to accelerate progress towards this? I will start with some background on the University of Manchester's gender equality journey to date and some of the actions that have been taken at Manchester to bring us to where we are so far. So the University of Manchester has a long history with the Athena Swan Charter. In 2008, it was one of the earliest signatories receiving an Athena Swan Award. At that point, only about 12% of our professoriate were women. It's evolved over time, and in 2016, we received our first 2 Athena Swan Awards in Humanities. And in 2009, our gender equality plans were aligned institutionally with our race equality plans. And there was an academic lead for EDI who was appointed at university level. As of 2021, we currently hold 6 silver and 8 bronze departmental awards, which helps to show steady progress over time. So over the first 10 years of Athena Swan, there was a clear, strong correlation between progress in Athena Swan and the proportion of women academics. So the proportion of women academics in STEM fields increased to 34%, which was an increase of about 7%. There were a number of actions that were taken to help attract and retain women, many of those which are still going on. And women professors increased from only 13% to 21%. There's still a long way to go, but you can see that there's been a big improvement. And that is a faster rate than the increase of male professors proportionally over the same period. So we are proud of the progress we've made. Today, women in University of Manchester account for about 32% of senior academics, 27% of the professoriate, and 36% of the university senior leadership team. So we still do have work to go, but there has been good progress. So what are some of the key policies and practices that really underpin this progress? We are trying to develop a culture of inclusion at the University of Manchester, and these are some of the categories where actions have been taken. So this is around recruitment and induction. For example, people on recruitment panels need to take unconscious bias training. Staff and students are encouraged to take active bystander training. We have policies around dignity at work and study, policies around consensual relationships at work. Career development and progression is another really key area of work. There's mentorship and sponsorship schemes. There's been a lot of work done to increase the fairness and transparency of academic promotion procedures. There's also a right for early career researchers to request 10 days a year of career training, which is really useful. There's also been a lot of work done in the category of reward, recognition, and benefits. So there's a number of schemes that can provide, for example, funding support for carers or people facing hardships, or for academics returning, for example, from a period of sick leave or from a period of paternity or maternity leave. There's also, awards like Making a Difference in EDI to, draw and recognize people who are doing good work in this arena. There's a number of policies around flexible working, around maternity and paternity and shared parental leave, as well as around career breaks and carers leave as well. The last main category is around employability and exit. And some of the schemes and work that has been undertaken relates to doing exit interviews, providing support for careers, and trying to decrease the amount of staff that are on fixed-term contracts, which are very vulnerable. So the intended outcome of some of these policies and practices is to contribute to a positive and more inclusive workplace culture. We want to create inclusive transformation where EDI is more deeply embedded in all aspects of the university. So this includes increasing staff awareness of EDI issues, challenging unacceptable attitudes and behaviors, and creating safe channels for staff and student voices. Really important to this is building trust and confidence so that there's fair, transparent policies and processes where there's more accountability embedded with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Really important to this is creating channels for reporting incidents and raising concerns. Recently, we had an anonymous report and support website launched where people could report complaints online. And it was very interesting because once that anonymous reporting system was enabled, there were a lot more reports coming in. So that is really interesting to us and signposts some work that we need to do. We also have experts in Manchester. Two of the people involved with our team here are Diane Harris and Maria Pampaka, and they take evidence-based approaches to identify barriers and needs of women in science. Often these develop from a very, very young age, and Diane and Maria have been working to understand evidence-based approaches to better understand these challenges, particularly with much younger students and teachers. There are also initiatives at Manchester to provide both formal and informal mentoring and training to support women in STEM across all career stages. In addition to the initiatives that are present in Manchester, there are also national and international initiatives like the 500 Women Scientist Pods, and I believe that they have pods available in Brazil as well. I think important throughout here is in highlighting and promoting positive role models, as well as engaging with a range of relevant stakeholders, including men. We'd also be really interested to learn more about what kind of existing initiatives there are in Brazil. Our international partnerships for gender equality, including our UK-Brazil partnerships, has strong institutional support at Manchester. So our involvement has been endorsed from representatives of the senior leadership team of the university, including the President and Vice Chancellor, Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell. We had an opportunity to host a delegation from India earlier this year from the Gati project to share experiences and best practices between India and UK colleagues. And we would love to have the opportunity to do something similar in the future with Brazilian colleagues. Our Director of Social Responsibility spoke at this event and talked about the importance of senior leadership commitment, governance, and also the importance of male allyship. One more example of some of the existing initiatives at Manchester include the annual Making a Difference Award. And our team was delighted to win the outstanding contribution to equality, diversity, and inclusion for our work on these projects. It was a really nice recognition of all the work that colleagues in Brazil and India and Manchester have put forward to making these partnerships a reality. So although a lot of progress has been made at Manchester, it is still very much a journey in progress, and some of the current priorities being tackled, including addressing race and intersectionality. There's a university-level Athena Swan Silver application, which is in progress, and really trying to accelerate change and embed EDI in all aspects of research, teaching, and social responsibility. Okay, so now I'd like to talk more specifically about the work being done through our UK-Brazil Gender Equality Partnership. Our general approach to this has followed a framework as shown here. So we've started off with the first phase related to starting out and considering how to approach a gender equality journey, followed by information on self-assessment, data collection and analysis, and action planning for success. So for each of these phases, we have hosted online sessions, which are a combination of presentations and discussions around the key topics. So our role has been largely to share some of Manchester's experiences and action plans to date, and also to share materials, resources, lessons learned, and good practice across the partnership. And we've also had the opportunity to be involved with some additional events, such as events like this today, which is wonderful, which helps to raise awareness and disseminate information and resources more widely. Last year, we hosted an International Women's Day event, for example, with speakers from UK, Brazil, and India, which is really impactful. There have also been some blog posts about these projects through the University of Manchester Social Responsibility newsletter. So in phase 2, I realize this slide has a lot of words. I won't go through all of them, but we are working with our partners to try to really bring to life the new Brazil Gender Equality Framework that I believe Marcela will probably discuss in her presentation. We're working to continue facilitating discussion and mutual knowledge exchange, in part through the invitation of expert speakers on priority topics. We are working to put together best practice examples, and we are building a website where we will put suitable project materials, which will be made publicly accessible. We also had a workshop earlier this year for the partnership held at the University of Sao Paulo. This gave a really good opportunity for people to meet face-to-face, and we had several sessions here, ranging from starting out to governance and action planning. The workshop was far too short to be able to cover everything we wanted to, but it was a really powerful opportunity to share experiences and to kick off the second phase of the project. During this workshop, we identified several priority topics, and we have since invited speakers to talk specifically on gender-based violence and race, gender, and intersectional inequalities in academia. In the future, the next couple of months, we hope to have sessions more specifically designed around action planning and embedding EDI in research and teaching. So I'd like to share some reflections to date based on our experiences with these projects. First, setting the scene is really important. Building connections and trust takes time, and this is especially challenging virtually with teams and people who maybe have never met face-to-face. And sometimes gender equality conversations can be sensitive as well. We've endeavored to take a listening first approach in meetings and open up space to allow and encourage input from all partners. Our Manchester team involves people with a range of experiences, from on-the-ground experience in Brazil, to a range of Athena Swan and EDI roles. And that breadth of experience within the Manchester team has been really helpful in bringing together a range of perspectives. And similarly, our Brazilian partners have a range of perspectives, which is really, really beneficial to the partnership. So understanding of a lot of these challenges has been a foundation of many of our discussions to date. And this is both driven by data when it's available, but also to lived experiences. So especially when projects are starting out, there may not be much data collected or available. So lived experiences are really important too. So from that base, we've then begun to look deeper and tried to identify both commonalities as well as identifying potential actions and steps forward. Okay. So although our initial approach has been reasonably generic, it's really important that localized inputs and understanding are being sought to be able to contextualize to a given setting. Even between partners within our partnership, or even at the University of Manchester between different departments, we see a huge variability in workplace culture. So it's really important that interventions are appropriately identified according to that context. I think that's a big challenge for a big partnership like we have in the UK-Brazilian partnership, but also more locally within even a single university because there is so much variability. The role of senior leadership is really important as well, as senior leadership members have a critical role as individual champions in accelerating gender equality progress. Visible and sustained senior leadership support is very key to be able to engage community and to affect significant cultural change that really addresses institutional and systemic inequalities. Some considerations here could include, for example, embedding gender equality as a strategic priority and embedding accountability for progress monitoring through planning and performance reviews in the same way as might be done for research and teaching. Of course, adequate resourcing and investment is really needed to meaningfully operationalize actions like this. I recently learned that some US universities who have made EDI a strategic priority have committed around 10% of their university budget to this agenda, which I thought was very interesting. So more broadly, some of the wider challenges relate to capturing the full range of experience and the need for really localized and in-depth cultural understanding. Adequate support and resourcing for EDI work, such as these projects, is really needed, especially given the time and commitment that is required and the challenges implementing systemic change. Despite these challenges, though, there are still a number of very unique and powerful opportunities that arise. Events like this create pathways for dissemination and building awareness, which is great. We've also been discussing within the partnership potential development of policy-oriented outputs. And also the increased networks are really beneficial because they give us the opportunity to share experiences and best practice and gives us a chance to reflect on our own approaches as we're all on a shared journey towards the wider targets of gender equality. Okay, I'll bring it to a conclusion here. So to summarize a few key points, first is that approaches do need to be localized, even though there are certainly commonalities across settings and experiences, barriers, and possible steps towards improvement. Diversity in teams and experiences really helps to bring together different and well-rounded perspectives. And there's very strong potential which exists in bringing benefit and change by bringing together international partnerships such as these here to work towards both short and longer term gender equality improvements. I'd also like to invite a call to action. We all have a role in accelerating progress towards gender equality. So perhaps some open questions to consider are, what are you doing to support gender equality in your activities and institutions? What existing initiatives are there? Can and should we be doing more? These are questions that we're asking ourselves a lot of the time and thinking about how collectively can we best accelerate change individually, institutionally, and culturally. My last slide is the same as my first one, and that's by thanking, again, all of the individuals, institutions, and funders that have contributed to this work so far. And a big thanks again to the organizers for the invitation to join the session today. Thank you. I can't hear you, Adriana.
Sorry. Again, thank you very much for your speech. Yeah. Congratulations for the project, for the team. Yeah. We are very proud of being part of this project. Yeah. Being a partner of Manchester University. Yeah. And thank you again for your speech. Now we will have Marcela Gobo's speech, and afterwards, if you have questions to Professor Laura or Professor Marcela, you can write the questions in our chat. Yeah, it will be a pleasure for them to answer your questions. Yeah. So now, as I said, we will receive Professor Marcela Gobo. Marcela Gobo é gerente de projetos de educação superior no British Council. Yeah, so I will read her presentation in English. Yeah, Marcela Gobo is a project manager higher education at the British Council in Brazil. She holds a bachelor's degree in project design from Mauá Institute of Technology and a dual bachelor's degree in Science and Humanities and International Relations from Universidade Federal do ABC. Her work is strongly linked to the internationalization of higher education in Brazil, gender equality, and science. Throughout her career at the British Council, she has worked in the arts and exams departments, supporting the capacity building and collaboration between United Kingdom and Brazilian artists and institutions of the most diverse backgrounds, as well supporting Brazilians of all walks of life who seek the opportunity to live, work, or study abroad. She has experience in English language teaching, having worked as a teacher for 10 years, fostering cultural and language learning to kids, teens, and adults. Yeah. So, Professor Marcela Gobo, it's a great pleasure to have you here. And we are very curious and motivated to listen to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening if you are watching us from a different country or a different part of the planet. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I would like to start again by thanking Universidade de Taubaté for the invitation for this great event, especially and namely Professor Gilberto Fisch and Professor Adriana, who are here with us today. And I would also like to thank Dr. Laura for her brilliant words. And it's always great to hear from our beneficiaries on the development of the initiatives that they are engaged in. So as she said, I am Marcela Gobo, Project Manager, Higher Education here at the British Council, and I will present to you some information about both the institution, the British Council, and the initiatives we develop on gender equality and the work we do around making and allowing more space for women in science as a whole. So let's start by sharing some information about us, because not everyone, unfortunately, knows who the British Council is. So for your information, I have here some information in Portuguese and English, so feel free to follow in the language you feel more comfortable. But I'll be doing my presentation in English here. So the British Council is the United Kingdom's international organization for cultural relations and educational opportunities. We support peace and prosperity by building connections and understanding and trust between people in the UK and countries worldwide. We are present in many countries, as we see, but we have been in Brazil since 1945, so we have very long-lasting and strong relations here in the country. We work with people in over 200 countries and territories, and we are on the ground in more than 100 countries up to date. In the past years of 21-22, we reached 650 million people with our work, and we are very proud to say that the work we do in Brazil is, of course, contributing to these numbers and contributing to bettering people's lives and making a difference in the world. So here's just a representation, a small part of the representation of the work we do. And you can already see in here some pictures showing the work we do in gender equality. But for you to have an idea, here below, we have some part of the work we do in art. So there is a small connection in here depicted, of course, but our work is much bigger, linked to musicians in residence, exchanges between UK and Brazilian artists. We have also a very strong link to gender identities in the Pride Parade in São Paulo. We have strong links with governmental bodies, entities, and institutions. And as I mentioned, and Laura brilliantly also mentioned, we have the work we have been doing in gender equality partnerships. But just to give you another taste, we also have scholarship opportunities. And this one here that is in highlight, that's the biggest picture in the bunch. This is the British Council Scholarships for Women in STEM. And this is a scheme for master scholarships for women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is a yearly scheme. We have recently closed the third year. We are going now on the fourth for the next one. And this is a very complete scholarship scheme. So please stay tuned, women. This is something that is going to be very interesting for you if you are looking for a mastering opportunity in your career for studies in the UK. So yes, stay tuned. The next round is to be opened earlier next year in 2024. So please keep your eyes peeled for the announcements in our social networks and website. So focusing on the topic of today's event here and what Laura has already talked a little bit about, what are we going to discuss is women in STEM. So at the British Council, we have this program, which is called Women in STEM, in Portuguese, Mulheres na Ciência, Mulheres em STEM, and it was developed back in 2018 with the process and the purpose of strengthening bonds and capacities, both at the individual and institutional levels in the UK and Brazil. So we focus also in the biggest links, as we have in here with UNITAU, the University of Manchester, and the multiple other institutions engaged in the consortium, but also making specific links between researchers, between professionals in both countries, with the objective to transform and influence patterns and strengthen leadership, gender, and diversity schemes in STEM. Why is that? Because throughout the researches and studies we did, we learned that there is still a lack of women in STEM areas for multiple reasons. Then what happened? The Women in STEM project was structured on top of 3 pillars: inspiration, performance, and recognition. When we talk about inspiration, we talk about sometimes, or many times, the lack of inspirational role models for girls to be encouraged to seek and pursue careers in STEM. So usually when we think about scientists, there is that specific stereotypical view of a male scientist wearing overalls, white overalls, that lab coat, that kind of disjointed hair. That's a stereotypical view of what a scientist is. And girls will not usually see themselves as one. So we need to challenge stereotypes and provide girls with the inspiration to seek and pursue jobs, studies in the STEM careers. For women, that are already engaged with the STEM areas, have already studied and are now performing in their professional lives, we need to focus on performance. How do we challenge the barriers that they face? How do we overcome these barriers? There is a phenomenon called the glass ceiling, in Portuguese, teto de vidro, or the leaky pipeline, in which says that there is a top career level that women will reach in STEM, but that they will eventually not go beyond that. And that may be because of sexism, because of lack of opportunity, because of many other situations that are already ingrained in the system that need to be challenged. So what do? We are developing projects and initiatives that allow women to develop skills so that they can advance in their careers by upscaling their performance. And on a final level, so to speak, with the third pillar, we have the recognition one. And that's where the project Unitau partnering with Manchester is in. That's the one with a much bigger view that I'm going to tell you a little bit about later. But beyond telling you about, I think it's easier if I show you. So I would like to call in a video to showcase a bit of the initiatives that we have representing these pillars individually, also showing you some impacts and some testimonies from our beneficiaries. So I would like to show you this video now. Please take a look at the work we have been doing.
Trabalhamos nas áreas de língua inglesa, educação. O British Council é a agência do Reino Unido para relações culturais e educacionais. Trabalhamos nas áreas de língua inglesa, educação, avaliação, arte e cultura. O programa Mulheres na Ciência, Mulheres no STEM, faz parte do nosso programa global Going Global Partnerships. Tem o objetivo específico de fortalecer vínculos entre mulheres nos âmbitos STEM, nas esferas individual e institucional, para transformar padrões de influência e fortalecer esquemas de liderança e gênero nas ciências exatas. A abordagem do ciclo de vida do projeto guia essa trajetória e leva em conta 3 dimensões essenciais: inspiração, desempenho e reconhecimento. Com o intuito de avaliar, compreender e valorizar os impactos e contribuições das ações e interações fomentadas pelo British Council dentro do programa Mulheres na Ciência, Women in STEM, no Brasil, nós fizemos 3 perguntas. Qual a percepção dos nossos parceiros e beneficiários sobre o valor do programa? Qual a contribuição do programa no desenvolvimento de capacidades, habilidades, relações e competências no âmbito individual e institucional? Em que medida estamos fortalecendo a representação, reconhecimento e influência de meninas e mulheres na ciência, possibilitando contribuições efetivas para uma transformação inclusiva no ecossistema de educação e ciência no Brasil?
O papel preponderante e que marca o programa Mulheres na Ciência, e aqui na Universidade Estadual do Maranhão trabalhamos com meninas na ciência, é exatamente disponibilizar a essas meninas a inclusão, a possibilidade de estarem inseridas em laboratórios de pesquisa e estarem sendo protagonistas da sua aprendizagem por meio da pesquisa.
Também nos permite vários insights diferentes com respeito a como lidar com as jovens, ainda estudantes da educação básica, e como ajudar os professores a estimularem as meninas a optarem pelas áreas de ciências exatas.
Então, é semear a esperança, sim, para que mais jovens, mais meninas possam ingressar na área de ciência, de tecnologia e de matemática.
O momento mais marcante que eu tive foi enxergar várias mulheres de diferentes realidades, diferentes estados, profissões, idades, juntas num espaço único, querendo entender sobre autoconhecimento. Porque às vezes a gente tem a impressão de que autoconhecimento é algo muito abstrato, mas não.
Eu acho que dos benefícios, das consequências mais positivas que houve na minha participação no programa Mulheres na Ciência foi a redescoberta da minha identidade inovadora.
Que nossas histórias e nossas trajetórias são muito similares, muito parecidas, e que essas histórias podem alavancar outras mulheres, outras meninas dentro da ciência.
In my opinion, the UK-Brazil Gender Equality Partnerships programme can change the gender and STEM context in Brazil. Advocating for policy changes at the national level is also significant in creating an enabling environment for gender equality in STEM, which promotes equal opportunities, funding and career progression for women who choose to work in STEM.
E foi extremamente rica a troca de experiências que nós tivemos durante esse processo. Então, eu agradeço ao British Council pela oportunidade de participar, pelo aprendizado, pelas trocas e também por ter auxiliado esse processo de institucionalização das questões de equidade de gênero dentro da nossa universidade.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it helps depict the work we have been doing. So, yeah, thank you so much. I think we can go back now to the slides as I delve deeper into the presentation and now talk a little bit more about the UK-Brazil Gender Equality Partnerships, which is the project that Unitau and the University of Manchester, alongside with the other partners, have been engaged through the 2 editions. So what is it? You had a little taste in the video, but here we get into the details. The UK-Brazil Gender Equality Partnerships started in 2021, so the editions always per past 2 years, so we have 2021, 2022, and it had a goal to influence the development of institutional policies and practices that would enable a progress toward achieving gender equality in STEM within higher education and research institutions in Brazil. So what was the structure behind it? And as Laura brilliantly explained and showcased how the process has been happening within the Unitau Manchester Consortium partnership, it was a partnership between a UK institution that has already got practice and experience within the Athena Swan Charter and the Athena Swan practices of gender equality, and the Brazilian ones that are willing and that wish to develop and advance in this matter. So what happened was we had in the first case a minimum arrangement of one Athena Swan Charter holder in the UK and at least 2 institutions from Brazil. And it was very interesting for us to see in the case of Manchester that they, from the get-go, from the initial moment, they had a consortium of 6 institutions in Brazil together with them. So what was the deal here? To draw from the UK's experience and support the Brazilian one in its development. And also, of course, to help the UK see what are the particularities in Brazil and perhaps help them see what can also be improved in the UK system from the Brazilian experience. It's always an exchange, right? It's a two-way process. So what was this first edition like and what happened? We had 9 UK-Brazil partnership projects being participant, including the Unitau Manchester Consortium. And throughout the year in which this project happened, we had 5 capacity building workshops that were facilitated by a UK consultancy, Advance AG, which is the one that gave life to the Athena Swan Charter. So they hold a lot of expertise in the charters for gender equality in the UK. And we also had a Brazilian consultancy, Cuidemos, who came to give a wider view into what the Brazilian context is. Why was that? Because we wanted, through this first edition, to create a tool, a framework for Brazilian gender equality that would then support Brazilian institutions in applying their methods and reaching, eventually, their own means to developing gender equality policies. So we needed to get the expertise from the UK, but also give the country and the local context so that it would match. It's just not getting what is already done and just saying, okay, let's apply this in the country. No, we had to consider our reality, our particularities, and then make it a fit for the country. So what happened was, throughout these exercises, these exchanges between UK and Brazil, the expertise from the consultancies, lots of conversations, we developed the Brazil Gender Equality Framework for Higher Education Institutions, and in Portuguese, what is called Marco Referencial para a Igualdade de Gênero em Instituições de Ensino Superior no Brasil. So among the 9 projects that were selected for the first edition, we have Universidade de Manchester, USP, Unifesp, INPE, Federal de Uberlândia, IFESP, and Unitau, as Laura said, Manchester plus 6, as I informally call them, in the first round. And alongside the other 8 partnerships, they collaborated to the creation of the Brazil Gender Equality Partnerships for Higher Education Institutions, or Marco Referencial para a Igualdade de Gênero em Instituições de Ensino Superior no Brasil. This is the QR code that you can scan, and it's going to lead you to the page where you can find more information on this tool that Laura said I would be talking about. And yes, I am. And yes, I will talk a little bit more about it in the coming slides. So you can scan it, and don't worry if you lose it, if you miss it. We are going to share the links for this later on. We have the Portuguese and English versions. They are there, free, available for you to download, read online, do as you like. But it would be interesting for you to take a look and understand what it is and what it proposes, because it is a live tool. And not only is it live, it was also something we saw, all right, in the first edition, we created this, but now we need to implement this. So what we did, we launched in the following year, 22-23, and this is an ongoing edition of the UK Gender Equality Partnerships Call. We launched a second edition of the call. So what happened? It now aims at facilitating the same schemes of partnerships, UK-Brazil, with UK being Athena Swan Award holders, and Brazil being institutions that are willing to develop and advance on the development of gender equality policies so that they can do so following the basis of the gender equality framework that we have developed. So the deal was we could have new schemes for institutions that were not involved in the first edition of the call, or ongoing and continued expanded schemes, which would involve the first participants plus other ones. And that's what happened with the case of Manchester. For one, like Laura mentioned, they are now 10 Brazilian institutions plus Manchester and 2 other British ones, as you can see in here. We have the University of Manchester, Glasgow Caledonian, and Oxford Brookes, plus the other 10 Brazilian institutions. And if you count them and there are not 10, it's because we have multiple departments from USP, so there may be a repetition in here, but that's fine. It's a very big and complete consortium that's going on alongside with other 5 partnership projects that were selected within this institutional arrangement for the second call. This time, we had other 4 capacity building workshops recapping on what was done in the first edition, but also advancing on what the framework proposes and what the projects are willing to do to actually implement the tool in their work. What we also did this time, in Brazil especially, because we understand that in the UK, the institutions that are involved in gender equality policies and partnerships, they are already applying or engaged or a member of Athena Swan, we focused on widespreading and disseminating the gender equality framework to the Brazilian institutions. Because if you take a look, we had 9 partnerships in the first round and 6 in the second. As you could see in the video, we engaged a total of 50 institutions, 15 from the UK, 35 from Brazil. If we consider the amount of institutions, higher education institutions and research institutions we have in Brazil, that are so many more, hundreds more that were not involved, because of course each project has its limitations, that did not have the opportunity to engage with the Brazil Gender Equality Framework. So what we did was we developed this year a series of workshops to disseminate the tool, the Gender Equality Framework, to the Brazilian institutions, funding agencies like FAPESP, the CONFAP family, CNPq CAPES, all many others, so that we could, as Laura beautifully mentioned again, have an engagement with the leadership within the institutions and within these funding agencies. Because as she said, we have to have an engagement with the leaderships so that the policies for gender equality are actually happening, so that they actually take place. We understand it's important to have student bodies, collectives, committees, even the professors, faculty taking action on this. We understand it is essential too. But if we do not have the buy-in from the leadership, it's much, much harder to have it actually taking place. So we held a series of 11 workshops. Actually, there were 10. So here we have a list in the sequence that they took place. And we have the 11th event taking place in the beginning of the month of October at CAPES at Distrito Federal here in Brazil. So what we did, we captured the amount of information from the 10 first events, the impressions we had, and then at CAPES, we presented this to the major players in the policy-making part in Brazil and talked about how we could take it further into a bigger, sturdier policy for the nation. One thing that is important for us to mention, as Laura also brought, is the percentage of participants in terms of gender. We have a majority of female participants, and we understand that when we talk about gender, it's usually a majority of women that are going to be engaged, but we also need the male allyship. We need men to be present. We need men to engage on this because this is for everyone. When we talk about gender equality, we need everybody to be present. And not only gender, we also need to take into account questions such as race, disability, gender identity, socioeconomic background. So there is that whole panel of intersectionality that Laura also mentioned that is also considered within the Brazil Gender Equality Framework, especially because in our country, all of these elements make a big difference in our life advancement in many cases. So I think that this is the bigger picture I would like to bring to you, to show you that through the work the British Council has been doing in gender equality, we have been able, through the partnerships, to develop the Brazil Gender Equality Framework for higher education institutions, and are now seeking for greater pastures, so to speak, seeking for greater advancements in a national level, widespreading this across the country for other Brazilian institutions that were not part of the calls, that unfortunately did not have this privilege, but that may also be engaging in activities as such, as we could see throughout this tour we took across 11 different states in Brazil. Besides this work we do, and besides this publication, which is the Gender Equality Framework, the Women in STEM project also has a wide variety of materials that are, again, free for access and download for everyone. So we do have the Women in Science magazine series, which is the one here on the left. You can access this online. Adriana is going to share the links with you. They are available in Portuguese, English, and Spanish. So it's also a means for you to practice your language skills if you are willing to. And they bring a wide variety of topics for you to learn from in regards to gender equality, variety related to STEM. We have the podcast series, Women in Science. This is available just in Portuguese, but it also brings a lot of interesting topics regarding the lives and experiences of women scientists and those involved in the case. We have didactic materials such as Meninas na Escola, Mulheres na Ciência. This is also available just in Portuguese. And a research paper from UNESCO that's available both in Portuguese and English, and you can also find online. So there is a lot to learn from. You can learn and find more information about the work we do at the British Council online. And if you have any other questions or any comments, please feel free to ask your questions here or reach out to me through email. I think that's it. And again, thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank you very much, Marcela, for your presentation. It was a great presentation. I think our students and other professionals could see the wonderful work you do in British Council. I'm trying to share the links, but I think I have a problem with the chat. Yeah, I don't know. I will try here, but maybe. Well, I will try. Then we can see if we have question in the audience, and if you have questions, yeah, please. You can now make the questions to Professor Dr. Laura or Professor Marcela. They are here to help with your doubts or curiosities. Okay. Let's see if you have. I couldn't share the links. Sorry. I have some problems with my chat here. Do you think you could share, Marcela, through the chat? Do you have access to in our chat or no?
I'm trying to join.
Yeah, because I don't have the access.
I am trying to connect, and I will try to share. Just a
Okay.
second. Let me see if it's working.
Okay, that's good. Great. So if you have questions, if you want, you can make the question in Portuguese and I can translate, no problems, yeah? Okay, so I have a question to you, Dr. Laura or Marcela. You have been working with Brazilian institutions, yeah? And you just had the workshop now in March, yeah, about the results you have about the programs. So I'd like to listen to you in your opinion, yeah. What are the main barriers and needs of women in science in Brazil, in your opinion? Can you see differences between our country and other countries you work? For example, India, you have this a similar project there, and other countries. I'd like to listen to you about this.
I think that's an excellent question and not an easy one to answer. I think that there are a lot of commonalities in the challenges that are faced, but I think they can look a little bit different in different contexts, right? And I think, the way that things are implemented in different places can be quite different, right? So, I think in the projects that we've seen this in the UK, we've seen it in India and Brazil as well. I think there's, a lot of our discussions have been around career progression, right? And what happens there. And the data really supports that, but it's interesting because you can see dropouts happening at different stages for different fields and in different institutions as well. But undoubtedly that there's, barriers impacting career progression. We had a lot of discussions in the workshop in Brazil around gender-based violence, and that's something that our particular partnership hasn't, gone into depth very much to address. We did have an expert speaker come and talk to our group on that topic, but that was something that was coming up, multiple times as as something that there was a lot of interest in exploring further. Another thing is, and Marcela mentioned this in her talk as well, but the intersectionality, it's not just gender. There's obviously things that intersect between gender and race and disability and other characteristics. And I think it's really, really important to address that. And I think that there's a lot that we can actually learn from our Brazilian partners from that as well. So yeah, I think there are a lot of commonalities and challenges, but the way that things are actually implemented in different settings can be quite different. And even within our group in the workshop, we were talking about different career progression challenges around promotion, but it happens very, very differently, even between the institutions in Brazil or between departments. So I think that's really important to understand that local context and try to target actions specifically to procedures and policies that apply at a particular location. Does that help to answer?
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was great to hear this from you. I don't know if Marcela wants to talk about this, the barriers and need you can see in our country.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I have got some delay, so I am accompanying the audio through another channel.
So Did you listen the
Leonardo's question about
okay,
the
great.
support to non-binary students, right? Yes, the idea, as Laura mentioned, and as I mentioned, when we talk about the intersectionality part here, is it also includes the intersectionality. So when we talk about gender identity, it's something that should include everyone. So when we talk about gender equality, we are not stuck in the binarism of male and female. So yes, we go for LGBTQI plus identities and everything. So when we talk about the gender equality policies, there is a lot more to it than just, and when I say just bringing more women into STEM. We have to bring more women into STEM, but we have to go further than that and consider what is important for everyone and how we can make university and society as a whole a more inclusive space for people. So definitely all identities are to be considered, and policies that make people engaged and embraced should also be part of the discussions. Yes, definitely. I hope that answers your question. And Laura, if you have any cases regarding this specificity within Manchester or something that has already been within the discussions at the current projects, please do feel free to share with us.
I can just add one small comment. So yes, absolutely agree that these policies really should embrace all aspects of inclusion, right? And that definitely includes non-binary staff and students. One challenge that we've had with that at Manchester so far is collecting the right data. The numbers tend to be on the lower side, and there tend to be lower proportions of people reporting their data. So trying to really target interventions appropriately, it's best to do that in an evidence-based way. So that's something that we're really looking to try to improve at Manchester as well. But fully agree that that should very much be part of the dialogue as well.
Great. I have a question from the audience. I will translate the question. Yeah. Can you tell us about opportunities for scientists in social sciences? Yeah, because the women in science, the main objective is STEM. Yeah, but do we have opportunities for scientists in other areas, social sciences, humanities? In the audience, we have many students from psychology, education area, yeah? So they would like to listen about this.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. Again, my answer would be yes, absolutely. We absolutely need social scientists and people from the humanities and all of that. Part of our team from Manchester, actually, nearly a third of our team, or nearly half of our team actually, is based in the Faculty of Humanities at Manchester. We have 3 faculties. One is Science and Engineering, where I'm based. One is the Faculty of Humanities, and one is Biology, Medicine, and Health. And the projects that I mentioned, where there were people who were investigating barriers, particularly at early ages, that's all run by social scientists who are in the Manchester Institute of Education. So there is absolutely a really, really important role for social scientists. And I think whenever there's big challenges and big opportunities, we really need to take an interdisciplinary approach to finding solutions that work. So having those contributions from all sorts of different backgrounds is really, really important.
Yeah, if I may add to that, of course, Dr. Laura here is the expert, both on the ground and academically speaking. But we have seen, especially from our experience through the workshops, the series of the 10 workshops, that I mentioned previously, that even though we as the British Council have been developing these initiatives under the Women in STEM project, these are not straight and strictly linked to STEM. We saw that the STEM field has a lack of gender equality, at least for women, and we see that there is an imbalance in many other areas where women are the majority and we do not have men, as many men, so to speak, going for those areas of study and so on and so forth. But of course, when you talk about gender equality policies, it works for everyone, and we do need everybody's support, especially because with different views, and as Dr. Laura just said, with an intersectional and with an interdisciplinary approach, more so, we can have that kind of complementary views that are going to actually make things come together much better at times. So yes, even though the name in the framework may be Mulheres na Ciência, Women in STEM, do not take it at face value that it's strictly focusing in science. It started as such, but it has the potential and it has the intention actually to be widespread and involve the academic community as a whole. So although currently at the British Council, specifically speaking, we do not have any programs that are directed towards the other areas of science, myself, as you could hear from the CV that Professor Adriana read, I do not have a background in STEM. We do not have specific opportunities in non-STEM related areas at the moment, but we do count on the support and on the engagement of people from all walks of life and all areas of knowledge, because we're all in this together. It's for everyone's profit and benefit, actually.
Great. It's great for our students to hear that. I have another, so now we have the links, yeah? Oh, great. The links to get the material from British Council. Thank you, Marcela, for sharing, yeah? I have another question from the audience. The question is from an undergraduate student, and he is asking how to join the program. Yeah, how to join the program.
I'm happy to comment, but I might pass that to Marcela.
How to be a part of the program, yeah? To participate and to develop activities with the program. Oh, Marcela, your microphone is not working. We can't listen to you, Marcela. Marcela? We can listen to you. Marcela, we can't listen. Oh. We cannot listen. Oh, she didn't read the message. Let's see. Oh. Marcela? No. Oh, what a pity. My God. Marcela, we can listen to you. That's a pity. Oh my God. Marcela? Yeah. Marcela, I'm sorry, but we couldn't listen to you. Was your microphone was off?
Oh my God, I've been talking this time through and through, and just now did I notice
we
that my mic
tried
was
to-
muted.
Yeah, we wrote
I
in
am
the message.
so sorry.
No problem. But
So
if you
taking
could you
back, and I'll
repeat
make it short this
stories?
time, I promise.
Okay.
What I said in short is,
Okay,
those
thank
were institutionally based programs. So unfortunately, it's quite hard to include the students at times. So at an initial point, we cannot include the students. It depends on how the partnerships are structured from the institutional leads, such as Laura, such as Dr. Diane Harris, and the people like Dr. Miroslava at Unitau. But then eventually some of the students, undergrads, postgrads, will be engaged and involved. But overall, what is important is that you, your colleagues, now get acquainted and familiar with the gender equality partnerships, the program, but mainly the Brazil Gender Equality Framework. Discuss it, talk about it with your friends, your colleagues, your professors, committees, whatever, and keep it alive. Talk about it, discuss it, take it further, because even though we need the leaderships to take action on this, it is also essential that the community, the academic community as a whole, be familiar with it and engage with it. Because at times you will be able to point out other elements that need to be tackled, other topics that you may not have covered fully, other topics that are dear to you and close to your heart, other elements that need to be discussed within your specific academic community. So I think at the moment, the best way for you to engage is to get familiar, to keep discussing, and to see how you can be part of the change. And for other projects that we have, stay tuned, follow us on the social media channels, and see the opportunities as they come. And again, my sincerest apologies for having spoken so much with my mic closed.
No, it was great. You could repeat, and it's great. That's it, yeah. It was a very important content that you and Dr. Laura brought today, yeah. So it was great. Maisa wrote, is a difference have program of study with women in science? Is it a I think it's, is there a different program of study in British supported by British Council? I think that's the question, yeah. If there is a different program.
Well, the program we have for women in science that I mentioned that is currently ongoing is the British Council Women in Science Scholarship, or British Council Scholarship for Women in STEM. The name may change at times. This is something that is currently closed at the moment. We are not open for applications, but we will be opening for new applications for women who are engaged in the areas of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the coming year. So in the beginning of 2024, we expect to have a new round for master scholarships for women in the whole world. This is a global program that the British Council holds. And what we do is we establish partnerships with universities in the UK. And after that, we open the call for people to apply, for women to apply for these masters at the universities that are partnering in each country. For example, in this year's round, we had 3 institutions in the UK that accepted application from Brazilian students. It may change. There may be more, there may be less, so each year it's different, but we expect to have a new round for 2024. So as I said, stay tuned. It's not open yet, but it's in the horizon. So this is the biggest individual-oriented initiative for studies in STEM. As I mentioned earlier, the Women in STEM project has the individual and institutional focus. So sometimes the projects we have, they have a more institution-to-institution approach, which makes it a little less likely for the individuals, the students, to have direct access to the opportunities in itself.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think we don't have other questions by now, yeah? And our time is running out too, yeah? So I think we can finish this session, yeah? So I'd like to thank you again, Dr. Laura Richards, Professor Marcela Gobo, for your presentation. It was, they were really great presentations, very important information for our students, for our colleagues, yeah? So I'd like to thank you very much. And I'd like to say again, it's an honor for us, University of Taubaté, to be part of this program. Yeah, we learn a lot with you. Yeah, and we know we will learn much more and exchange much more information. Yeah, Professor Miroslava couldn't be here today. Yeah, because she had another professional appointment. But she'd like she asked me to thank you for this presentation and for this session today. Yes, and I'd like to give you the word again, just to finish, to finish your last words, Dr. Laura.
Just to thank you again for the opportunity to speak and learn from others. It's a really exciting and rewarding partnership, and I think it's been really rewarding for our team to be involved with it so far, and we really look forward to the future as well, and to carrying these partnerships on, and looking forward to ways that we can continue working together in the future. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Professor Marcela?
Well, the same here. It's very gratifying to be engaged as a facilitator institution for such interesting partnerships. And I think I speak in the name of the British Council. It's great to see that India started such a great project that Manchester is engaged in, and we followed in their footsteps, and we are advancing on this. And it's great having UNITAU as part of our partners. So again, thank you for the invitation. Thank you all for your time and attention and interesting questions. If you have any other question that I was unable to answer, please contact us and we'll stay in touch. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the audience. I invite you all to continue attending the activities at CICTED, our Congress, yeah? And I wish you have a very nice day, yeah? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.